921 here, Big 550 KTRS. In terms of full disclosure, I am a Catholic, and I am thrilled and excited and gushing over all of this pomp and circumstance when it comes to Pope Francis, guilty as charged. And as a Catholic, it's exciting to see the head of your party come to your country and to meet with the president and to give mass and to see the whole country sort of stopping what they're doing and paying attention. And I would say that in this day and age where life is so fast and people get so snarky over things within 15 seconds, right? They're already snarking about the movie they saw while the movie's going on. It's nice to see that the world stopped for a moment and listen to this man in broken English, in very, very tough to hear English and tough to understand English, hang on every single word the man says. I'm sorry, it's exciting. That's my prejudice, and that's where I'm come from. So for the next couple of minutes, for as long as I talk about this, the next couple of days, guilty is charged. Now, let's talk about what the man said, because and Tony Messenger touched on it in his column the other day in the Post-Dispatch. I am lucky enough in the next couple of weeks to host something at the St. Louis County Library. Senator Danforth has written a new book about faith and politics. His old book, Faith and Politics, talked about faith and politics. And this new book talks about politics and faith. He, of course, a politician and a ordained minister. And the premise is that, it's a tricky business. It's a tricky business being a politician and carrying a Bible in front of you, because you find yourself in all sorts of interesting situations that goes against the teachings of the good book, or go against the teachings of one faith versus another faith. And if you are, shall we say, indignant over the fact that people are not following the word of your Lord or your God, I've always thought it a little dangerous for somebody to tell me what they think God knows or God does or God says. But be that as it may, that's why that's why I have priests tell me what they say. That way I don't have to worry about it. There's a little Catholic humor there. I apologize. But in his remarks, the Pope gave something to just about everybody and actually took something away from just about everybody. Let's talk about, he gets up on the podium and talks about the institution of marriage and says that I'm going to Philadelphia to honor and to cherish a very important time in the history of marriage and family. If that is not a shot across the bow at people who are engaging in or promoting all sorts of alternative lifestyles, if you will. This Pope basically came out and said that the institution of marriage is under assault, not just from quote unquote gays and lesbians and transgender and everybody else, but also, quite frankly, divorce, cheating, children out of wedlock, all of those things. I think I think not that I'm speaking for the man. I'm just interpreting his remarks. But if you're talking about the institution of marriage and family, I think that all falls under that preview, anything other than a traditional husband and wife with children. And so I think we can all agree that the marriage and the family and the tradition is under siege. Now, how that's under siege from your point of view, that's a different story. But clearly, the man talked about how we should protect people's religious liberty. Now, every word he says is vetted. Every word he says is said for a reason. I actually think that was a nod to the clerk in Kentucky whose religious freedoms and religious liberty is being infringed upon because she is forced to do something she doesn't want to do by the law. Now, you might look at it somewhere else, but I think that he was referencing religious liberty and religious freedom. Well, okay, great. Now, What about the religious freedom of those mainstream religions that embrace gay marriage? So there's a rub, but everyone can agree on religious freedom, but when you put it into practice, well, then it depends on whose toes you're stepping on, standing up for your own religious freedom. So clearly, marriage and religious freedom is an interesting thing in which I would say many in the conservative audience applauded. And then he went there. And he said he applauds President Obama for the initiative on climate change. And that he said, well, this is an emergency. He says we still have time to act. He goes on to say that climate change is a problem that cannot be left for future generations. He talked about inequality for the less fortunate, for the underserved, for those who don't have access to all the great things America is known for. Was he talking about climate change? No question about it. Was he talking about universal health care? Sounds to me like he was saying something along those lines. And so, which is very supportive of a liberal member of the audience. So quite frankly, from where I sit as a lay Catholic, as somebody who was flawed and who is just a regular schmo trying to figure out the world, I quite frankly thought it was brilliant because he upset both sides and he embraced both sides and let the chips fall where they may. I thought it was fascinating. And if you think you are going to claim this Pope as your own, or you're going to claim the God as your own, or God is somehow on your side in this political debate, I can make an argument that you're wrong. Either way, because the Pope said climate change is important. Many people in the conservative camp don't think that. He says traditional marriage is important. Many people in the liberal camp don't think that. So if you are going to, walk to war with the Bible saying he's on our side, I think the Pope would say not so fast. I thought it was fascinating, quite frankly. And I think that's just the opening salvo. I think tomorrow when he meets in front of Congress, I think it's great. I think it's going, and I hope the sparks fly. I hope he throws it out there and let the chips fall where they may. And if someone's got a problem with it, so be it. But it sounds like this man doesn't shy away from what he thinks, which is really kind of exciting. And it's history. And it's, everyone has an opinion. And here's his, and he's going to tell you what he thinks. I thought it was great. 314-969-KTRS, 1-888-550-KTRS, or star KTRS. It also goes to show you that you need to be very careful about how you position your faith when you represent people who aren't of your faith. And if you're an elected official, that has got nothing to do with your religious faith. But it does. But it shouldn't. But it should. But it does, and it doesn't. Which makes things so interesting in this world. We'll come back. We'll take some phone calls. 314-969-KTRS, 1-888-550-KTRS, or star KTRS. Those are the phone numbers.